Welcome back. In this video, we're going to have a look at how ZBrush and Daz Studio can work together with one another. So one of the things that we often have to do is adjust clothing or adjust other items like hair or props to fit our characters properly and to make a scene look completely believable. Vertex features that we've looked at with Hexagon, they're one way to do this, but other things are not so easily adjustable, like things that need to be smoothed out maybe and resculpted in and tucked underneath something, and that's where digital sculpting really comes in. ZBrush isn't a cheap tool. It's a professional 3D applications, and I think at the time I'm recording this video, it's about $900 for a perpetual license. There's also a subscription available for the software. There's also two packages available, like one has more features and one has less features, but it's cheaper, and they both work equally well with Daz Studio. This is where you would get it from pixelogic.com. The ZBrush 2022.0.5 is the recent version here, which I haven't actually downloaded yet. And then under store here, this is where you can buy them. So this is the full version here, and then ZBrush Core is the one with less features. Have a look at them. I believe they do have a trial version these days. And what makes this beautiful is the way how Daz Studio is integrated with ZBrush. So ZBrush has a technology that's called GoZ, and that lets other software manufacturers integrate their products with ZBrush. So they're very clever in regards to exporting geometry as well as materials in some cases. So let's see how I can use it in conjunction with this figure here. This is a Genesis 8 figure called Olympia, and I'm using an outfit by I13, which is the librarian outfit. So this is a Genesis 3 outfit, and the pencil skirt and the top were fitted using auto fit. And while this works okay, I think the breasts don't quite fit very naturally here. So auto fit tends to literally cling on and follow the figure, and this does not look natural. So this is something that we can sculpt out. It would be possible to do this with vertex features as well, like in Hexagon, but this is just another way to make a change to clothing with digital sculpting. The other thing I'd like to have a look at is the glasses. So she's wearing glasses in real life, but right now she's wearing them on her head because she's, I don't know, doesn't want to use them or whatnot. This in filament, this isn't really a problem, but if I switch this over to Iray, then we see that the glasses are basically sunken in to the hair, and the hair looks as it always did. So yeah, this isn't very believable. So this is okay here, but I think some of the hair at the top here, that should really be tucked in underneath the glasses. And that might be a little bit difficult to select that with vertex tool. So we can sculpt this down and literally just tuck in the hair underneath the character. Let's see how we can do that. I'll switch this back to filament here. Then I'll select my figure like previously. Then I head over to File, Send to, ZBrush. And when I do that, I'll get a little options dialog here. Export at current resolution, you want to leave that off. And export with deformations, you want to enable that. So this means that if you have a posed figure or custom character, these will all be transferred into ZBrush, and that's probably what you want. If you disable that, then you'll have the figure in the A pose without any morphs enabled. That's usually not what you want if you're using ZBrush and GoZ in this context. So first option, export current resolution disabled, export with deformations enabled. Hit accept, and then ZBrush should open automatically in the background. In the background, you can see that all these items are being loaded here at the top, and we're now in ZBrush, which is very nice. So the first thing that we need to do is dismiss this kind of lightbox thing here that happens with the comma key. And then we can drag out our figure. So these are all the subtools. They're all different tools, as ZBrush calls them. So the figure, as well as the outfit, and then the glasses and the hair and all that. So left click and drag her out on the canvas. Holding shift will make her stand straight up. And then we need to go into something called edit mode so that we can work on this 3D object here, or the group of 3D objects. Then we can press F, and then we can go and rotate around the figure and start working on her. So just to be clear, I don't want to turn you into professional ZBrush artists. By God, I'm not one of them, but it is a nice tool, and I'd like to show you the integration so that you can have a look at if this is something that you'd like to try out or not. Oh yeah, so navigation is a little weird in ZBrush, and you may have heard of that already. You can go and right click off the figure, so not on the figure, off the figure, right click and then left click and drag so that you rotate or orbit around the figure. Panning happens with Alt, left click and then dragging off the figure. That'll be panning. And then you can also Alt left click and drag, and then let go of the Alt key while you drag down, and that'll zoom in with the figure. That gets you into this zooming mode. That is a little weird. I haven't quite mastered that yet, gotta be brutally honest with you. Thankfully, they're also at the bottom here, we also have on-screen control. So this is the equivalent to framing up my character. So Control F in Daz Studio is essentially this in ZBrush, which is just the letter F. Then you also have the move here. That is left click and drag on this icon, then you move the figure. So that's like panning. Then we have zoom 3D here. So left click and drag on that, and then you zoom into that center of the figure. And then you have rotate here. Left click and drag on that, that'll rotate the figure. So in ZBrush, I can see that there are issues with something that I didn't quite see as much before, namely the poke through on the underarm here. If I go back to Daz Studio, I can see that the tendency is actually there to poke through here, but much of this is being taken care of by the smoothing modifier. So let me go and select the shirt, head over to parameters, and just switch that off so that we can see, yeah, okay, so this is more like what I'm seeing in ZBrush. So you can see that sometimes the smoothing modifier does actually do a really good job, but also it doesn't completely get rid of it. So we know these are problematic areas. If you do make any adjustments in any of the external tools, it's a good idea to switch off the smoothing modifier just to see where it has difficulties. And if it does the last 100 yards or so, that's perfect. But if we can help him, then even better. So I'm going to have a look at the underarm area as well as the breast area, as well as the glasses. So shirt first. This is more like what we see here. In ZBrush, we can see that some of the objects are lighter than the others, and the lighter ones are currently the selected object. I can switch to something else by Alt left clicking on it. So Alt left click the shirt, then the shirt is active. If I go and Alt click the hair, then I got the hair. If I Alt left click the glasses, then I've got those, and so forth. So Alt click on the skirt, then that is active. To make that visible a little bit better, there's an option here that's called transp, or like transparency. If I switch that on, then the rest of the figure turns into something like this ghostly kind of groovy outline. I do like that because it means I can see my other options, my other items shining through this ghostly material here. Do you see that? So my skirt, for example, is here. I can see that it is active. I can go and brush on it if I wanted to, make it come out and all that. But the shirt is still visible, so I can go and sculpt behind something and pull it out if I needed to do that. So it's very, very handy in ZBrush. It's a good tool. I'm going to go and work on the shirt. So I'm going to Alt left click on that and then go turn her around and maybe have a look at the Underbust area here first. So ZBrush works by using sculpting tools. By default, so this is where that is here under the standard brush. So this is the brush tool that is selected. By default, the standard brush will sculpt things in the direction of the normals of the object. So if I go and stroke on the body here, I can see that the shoulder is coming out. It's coming out to the top right because that's the direction of where the normals are facing. If I were to do this at the front here, left click and drag, then all that would come out towards me because that's the direction of the normals that are facing that. That took me essentially forever to understand. I don't think anyone's explained this to me. I'm kind of glad that I could figure this out. So that's how the standard brush works. It's selected by default. If you click on this, you can see this huge, overwhelming selection of brushes that come free with ZBrush. Thankfully, we're not going to be using all that many of them. The three that I use are the standard brush, the smooth brush, and the move brush, occasionally also the inflate brush, but that's really all. So there's only really 4 brushes that we need. Any of these can be selected from here, or you can use a shortcut key. So if I wanted to switch to the standard brush from anything else, that is just the shortcut BST. So brush standard, I guess. I don't think that's going to help me much with these underarm areas here, but it will probably help me with the underbust area. Let me go and try that out. So I'll go and just sculpt this out a little bit. The brush might be a little bit too big, so I'm going to go and make that smaller. Control Z will undo that, and I'll just go and make this a little bigger here. Now, it doesn't look great, but you can see the figure underneath it, so it's kind of it's a good start. Sculpting that out here like so. This isn't enough to make it look good, so there's another thing that we can use, namely hold down the Shift key. And if I do that, you can see at the top here, my standard changes from standard to smooth, and the icon also changes. That's up here in the top left. As I hold down Shift, my circle color also changes. And that is the smooth brush. If I left click and drag while holding Shift, I can go and smooth things out that are a little bit crooked here. So all these things that look a little, as if they should be smoothed out, you can just left click and drag just with really small strokes, and that'll smooth things out. I've gone a little over the top here, so Control Z will undo that. Or I can go and not use the Shift key now, just go and keep sculpting. Let's see if I can go and smooth that out a little bit, or make that just look a little bit nicer here. I think especially the Underbust area here could do with improving. There's another brush that might help us do this, namely the Move brush, and that literally moves geometry in the direction that the brush is being dragged. So BMV will switch to that. That's the Move brush. You can see that my brush now aligns to where it would move as I do this. So if I go and left click and drag this area out, then you can see that this whole topology is being shifted out here. And I don't know if that's great, or if that's kind of getting into the right area here, just sculpting this bit out here. So that's the Move brush. That is very helpful. But it's done too much. So now I need to go switch back to the Smooth brush and just make that a little bit less here. And that is essentially how skilled artists who are much better at this than I am do it. So now I would switch back to the standard brush to fill out this hole here, BST, and then just with small clicks, click on this area, and then that hole's closed. Same here. Just gently stroke on this. And if you've done too much, that's also no problem. You just go Control Z and then you undo that. Sometimes you get into this problem that other areas of the geometry might get involved, so you got to make sure that doesn't happen. And then if you're happy, then we can leave it like that. I'm thinking a little bit more smoothing here. We're nearly there. These tiny bits here, they might not matter because the smoothing modifier will take care of that. There. Let's say we're good now with the underbust area, and we want to have a look at the underarm area here. There's currently no way to pose my figure inside ZBrush, but we don't have to do that. This is a good job for the inflate brush. So that is BIN for inflate, or inflat as it says here, and that is what you'd expect it to do. You left click and drag over your geometry and it literally bulges out in the direction of the normals. And we can do that if we make our brush smaller with the bracket keys here, the square bracket keys, like they do in Photoshop. You can also hold down the space bar. That brings up this menu here that lets you change all kinds of other properties, including the draw size as well as the intensity. That's like how strong your brush works. And it pops up as you hold down the space bar. So the inflate brush, if I use it made really small, it'll just inflate these parts that are now underneath the figure here. So like this. And that's a really easy way to bring that back. And we want to try that on this side as well. This is best done with a small brush. And that's taking care of that. If it has done something nasty to the geometry, don't be afraid to smooth it out with the Shift key. You could do that and then just repeat the operation until we get that a little bit smoother here. Anything like that will help the smoothing modifier. This is a little crinkled here. So Shift key, just smooth that out a little bit. And then not hold down the Shift key and just inflate that bit out. I think that's that. You can do that here. Just take that bit out so that it's probably okay here that the smoothing modifier is probably going to take care of that. At the back as well, while we're here, we might as well just inflate that bit a tiny bit. If you hold down Shift and then left click down, that'll line the character up. There, that's that. I think we've done a pretty good job. There's something we won't be able to fix, and that is these buttons here. The top two or the top three look okay, but the bottom three have been mangled, and that is something that AutoFit has done. So these buttons were just part of the regular geometry, just as a complete aside here, and we won't be able to fix that at all. This is something that if you do auto-fitting, that is something you've got to be aware of, that these things do happen from time to time, and that is because they get deformed like regular geometry does, and this is totally ruined. This is completely destroyed. So if you wanted to bring this back, you have to essentially remove this geometry or make it invisible and then use new buttons. The better way to do this would be to use rigid follow nodes on the t-shirt so that this doesn't happen. But that's just an aside. If you ever come across this issue, then, you know, this is something, rigid follow node, look it up. The Marda's made a really good video on YouTube about that. It means the geometry will not be deformed as operations are being performed on the cloth. We'll take care of the hair next, but before we do, let me go and send these changes back to Daz Studio. That's kind of part of the magic here. Once you've made a change and you want to see it in Daz Studio, all you do is click this button here, Go Z. And when you do that, ZBrush will send everything back to Daz Studio in which it is being picked up, and this dialog opens up, and that is really, really handy. It has an advanced option in case you need to see that. When you do, this looks exactly like the advanced options of the regular Morph Loader Pro tool or what we've seen from Hexagon. We don't have to use it. I'm going to switch it back to basic because that's really all we need here. It is asking me for a morph name. I'm going to call it shirt fix, perhaps 1, just in case we make another one. And that is all I need to do. Hit accept, and that is that. We don't see a change here because we need to go on to our morph here. This is the morphs category. Here's shirt fix 1. And lo and behold, let's see how this performs. Left click and drag that slider, and there we go. That's our changes in action. So, you know, it's maybe a little bit baggy. Maybe I could have spent a little bit more time on making this look handsome, but you get the point, you get the picture. So this looks certainly better than the previous thing did. So this is literally hugging the breast, and this one is not. And the underarms have been fixed literally within seconds. And this is the power of ZBrush. The smoothing modifier isn't even on, so we can go and put that on now and see if that looks even better. Yeah, so it's done a little bit of a tiny change there, but yeah, everything is good except for the buttons. So that's change number 1. If I wanted to go to change number 2 now and go back to the hair, all I need to do is, no exporting is necessary. The scene is still in ZBrush, so all I need to do is switch back and then go and select the hair. Let's have a look at that. So Alt left click on the hair to select that. Then we zoom in and have a look how we might want to change that. So in this case, I think I'd use the move brush. I'd go and left click to something like an orthographic view, and I'll switch from the inflate brush BMV to the move brush, and I might make that a bit bigger, maybe like so. Not too big. If you make that too big, then you stand a chance to encroach on the skull of the figure, so that means you're pushing too much down. You probably don't want to do that. I'm going to make it a bit smaller here and take it nice and easy and just see if I can put these hairs from the top just underneath the glasses here. Patience is key. It doesn't have to be 100% professional perfect job here. You can see that was already one part of the glasses done here. Let's take care of the second one, just so that that's a bit more believable. I mean, you can see how powerful this is as you can make style changes while you're at it as well. I mean, if a skilled sculpting artist could now go ahead and make maybe changes that would make the hair completely different with a little bit of practice, you can totally do that. Like, you know, this, I can make it a bit more fluffy or whatnot. I think we're already pretty much there. That's really all I wanted to do. I just want to make sure the hair doesn't poke through here. So anything can be adjusted like that. Necklaces that don't fit, clothing that just doesn't quite there, hair ends like ponytails that just need to be grabbed with a larger brush and just put into position. Super easy to do in ZBrush. And this is often what 3D all comes down to, that yeah, sure, you can do it if you had 5 days, but if you need to do it in 5 minutes, then, you know, tools like this really do save you some time. And maybe I'm going to leave it like this and bring that change back. So once again, super easy to do that. I don't know if it's going to look great or not, but we'll see that. With the hair still selected, I'll just hit Go Z once again, and in Daz Studio the same dialog will pop up, but this is now for different items. So this is now for the Frankie hair, and once again I'm going to go and say glasses fix 1, just in case I need to go back. So that's the other beauty. If you find, oh, I haven't adjusted this enough, just go back to ZBrush, make another adjustment, bring a second morph slider in, and you dial that in on top of the other one. So that's the other cool thing that you can do. The point of all this is it's non-destructive. So you haven't touched the original item of clothing, or hair in this case, and it's non-destructive. You can dial it out if you wanted to do that. No problem at all. So let's go and have a look at our handiwork. This is probably going to be more apparent, more obvious in Iray in a moment. We're going to select the hair here like so. And here under morphs, I have glasses fix. Left click and drag, and okay, I think I've pushed the scalp in a little bit, but I don't think that's going to be a major issue once we see this rendered in Iray. Let's check it out. Not bad. I don't see any scalp issues here. It's another one of those tips. Do check it in Iray rather than rely on a preview showing you something that might not actually be a problem. So in my case, Filament was suggesting, hey, that was bodged up. But now that I see it in Iray, I'm actually pretty happy about this. And just to compare this to what it looked like before, Alt click on the slider and there's like the glasses kind of buried in the hair. That's not what I like. So left click and drag to 100%. And we've made a fix non-destructively. Is that cool or what? And it's literally what I really like about this is that yes, ZBrush does take a lot of time to get used to, but what I love about it is this bi-directional integration that we don't have with many apps. Only Hexagon and ZBrush are currently the two apps that have it. And ZBrush in this context literally feels like a perfect extension to Daz Studio. So it is expensive, but I think the core version is about $500. The full version is about $900 for perpetual license. There we go. It's just neat how many quick fixes you can make with that, except for the buttons. They are literally mangled, and that is something that you'd need to fix in a different way. So I would probably make these invisible while not changing the geometry, and then using my own buttons. You can even create buttons in ZBrush. That is also possible. So that is how that works. In the next episode, we're going to have a look at pretty much the same thing, but we're going to try and do this in Blender. Blender is a phenomenal tool. It's completely free, but it's not integrated as well as ZBrush and Hexagon are into Daz Studio. But we're going to have a look at it because it's a free tool and it's a valuable asset in your 3D pipeline. Stay tuned for that.